Welcome to Indigenous Cryptid. I am your host, Aaron. Today, we have two tales of paranormal activity. First up is Knifewing, with a tale from the Elmorro Theatre in Gallup, New Mexico. And second, we have Anonymous Storyteller, with paranormal activities in apartments.
Well, the one story that you had referred to has been about 11 or 12 years ago. My wife was a facility manager of the Elmorro Theatre, and one of the newspaper guys had was doing a story on Halloween, so he wanted us to give him permission or get permission for him to stay in the basement one night. And we thought that was kind of a funny request, but we said, okay. The place is eerie as it is, it just being so massive, so huge of a building. And so we got permission for him to do that story, and we told him the do's and don'ts and codes and stuff like that to turn on and off as far as alarm and all this goes. And the next day when we got there, we found the door open, and that definitely set off some concern between me and Bev. And we went inside. We found lights on in different areas, and no sign of him anywhere. And we tried to call his cell number, no answer, no response, and searched the place and didn't find him. So we secured the building down and everything, and went to our office area, and we just thought it was very unusual to come there and for somebody to have left, the front door open, like he did. It was unusual, because when you start thinking about it, the way the door was left open, as though somebody ran out the door, and instead of making sure it was securely shut or anything, and all these thoughts went through our minds. So I tried to get in touch with him at work. There was no response there. We finally got I know what it was. We met his boss at a restaurant, and we asked him if he still works for him, because we had no response from him. And he said, yeah, he still does. And we told him what happened at the theater, and how we found it. His boss found it a little humorous, but and was definitely, you can see there's a lot of concern in his voice. And he told us that he was scared to death of the place, that he was downstairs and walking around trying to get comfortable and everything, and was setting up a cot so he can crash out in, and then or some sort of bedding that he was setting up down there. And something screamed in his ear that caused him literally to run up the stairs of the basement and literally run out the front door. And we didn't hear from him after that. In fact, later on we found out he even moved out of town. So that was the story of that, one of those Halloween scares that actually did happen. And never got a chance to really speak to him about the scream, the yell, or anything. And being down there in the theater, we do know that there are unexpected things that we can't really explain. It does happen, but we've never felt any kind of negative force at all, to do any kind of harm or anything. But there was definitely some sort of something there.
That was Knifewing with the Elmorro Theatre story. Next up, we have anonymous storyteller telling a tale about a paranormal activity.
This took place in a town called Three Crosses, Las Cruces, New Mexico. One thing about this area was apartment complex. It consisted of 4 people living in that apartment complex. One of those roommates had a little get-together in that apartment complex, and that roommate had requested for a Ouija board. She had requested if a party could be thrown. 2 roommates declined that request. It was respected temporarily, and those 2 roommates had left. The roommate that had requested the Ouija board party ended up hosting that party. From what was said to this roommate that requested the Ouija board, the roommate was very afraid, was very scared, and at the moment, the 2 roommates that had returned back to the apartment was wondering why things were out of place, and wondering why the toilet paper was out of place, why so much was used. The roommate that requested the Ouija board party had explained that they had this party. So, as time went along, the 2 roommates that had declined this Ouija board party started noticing things changing in the apartment and started hearing things. So the 2 roommates thought maybe this whole thing that they were hearing and seeing things was due to marijuana. So one of the roommates that had declined this Ouija board party that was smoking marijuana stopped smoking because it was becoming an everyday thing, an everyday nuisance, an everyday distraction, to where this roommate did not want to come back home because of what was happening. So the second roommate that had declined the Ouija board party had said, okay, we'll stop. So the 2 roommates, we'll call Ben and Sally. Ben and Sally stopped smoking and stopped drinking because Sally was so convinced that it was the drugs and the alcohol that was messing with him. Sally was convinced that these substances and alcohol was driving them to thinking things are going on in the apartment. And they remained sober for at least more than 2 months. But the other 2 roommates that requested the Ouija board party, they started having bad dreams, they started seeing things, and they did not drink. Well, they occasionally drank, but they didn't do any drugs. But they were hearing and seeing things as well. And the female roommate, we'll go ahead and call her Angela, and the male roommate, we'll call her Dwight. So Angela and Dwight, they leave back to the res. Ben and Sally are back at the apartment, but they had no idea that Angela and Dwight left for the res. They didn't know that they just they fled from their apartment. They had no idea. So Ben and Sally, they both have 2 days off together, but Sally ends up picking up extra hours and Ben is home alone. And Sally returns back home, and Ben tells Sally about what had happened to their cat in that apartment. And the cat became so spooked that its fur all over remained shocked to where the fur was just extended out. It couldn't calm down. And Ben tried getting the cat, but the cat would not come out of the room and it remained under the bed. So Sally went to go check up on the cat, and the cat would not come out. So Sally sits down with Ben, and they're both just talking and watching TV. And that's when Sally discovers that, Ben is smoking again. She still wants to remain sober. Then they hear something in their roommate's room. That is Dwight and Angela's room. So they think, okay, they're in their room and everything, because normally Dwight and Angela would sleep in and they wouldn't come out until later on in the day, and sometimes they wouldn't even come out of their room and they would just stay in their room. And that was just one of those days. Then the drawers start to open, they start closing. Then something is dragged across the wall. Ben makes a remark about something happening sexually in that room. Sally just laughs it off and says, no, they did have that respect for themselves. They didn't do that. Then Ben says, yeah, it's happening again, because pounding started again. Then it gets quiet. Something is thrown across the room in Dwight and Angela's room. So Ben gets up, grabs his handgun, loads it, and asks Dwight and Angela, are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? Is everything fine? Sally ends up going behind Ben, and then Ben says to Sally, I want you to leave if there is anyone here. And he's like, get your shoes on. So Sally gets her shoes on, grabs her phone, texts Dwight and Angela, and they respond back and they say, we're coming back. And they say that they're in Hatch. So Sally tells Ben, no one, they're not here, they're coming back from Hatch. So that's when Ben says, I'm going to open the door, whoever is in there, I want you to come out right now. I have a gun with me. Ben lets that person know that he will hurt them if any attack is made, but they'll still live. And so much more stuff is thrown again towards the door. So Sally opens the door and then is ready to make a phone call, but as all that is happening simultaneously, Ben opens the door, goes in, and there's nobody at all. So Dwight and Angela had a Wanishkish in their bedroom, and that Wanishkish was thrown in the hallway. Sally was going to pick up the Wanishkish. You can't have the Wanishkish on the floor. So Ben tells Sally not to pick up the Wanishkish, leave it alone, leave it on the floor. So Sally calls Dwight and Angela, but they don't pick up. And I said, they're coming back from Hatch, and that there's an area where you lose signal. So they wait and they wait. Ben makes phone calls, and Sally's just waiting. So Angela and Dwight come back, and they just got back from seeing a medicine man, is what Angela had stated. So Ben and Sally report to Angela and Dwight with the events that had taken place in their bedroom. They leave. Again, they head back home. They leave that same night. They leave everything alone. They don't touch anything. And they leave. Ben and Sally are left at the apartment again. But this time, Ben says that we're going to have to do a prayer So Ben makes a phone call and some things are delivered, some herbs, some cedar. And it was a very rough time for Ben and Sally. To this day, Sally does not want to remember that time because Sally is like really convinced that it may have been possibly due to alcohol and marijuana, but Sally can't really understand why those things were thrown across in the bedroom, in Dwight and Angela's bedroom. One thing that Sally checked was their windows. There's 2 windows in that bedroom, and there's no other exits. And Sally said that they were both locked.
Thank you for listening to Indigenous Cryptid about these tales of paranormal activities. We hope you have a good evening. What is your story?